Good morning, everybody. It's Friday. Oh my God. We finally got to Friday. The first Friday in June. It's June 6th. Yep. All kinds of things going on in the world. Oh my lordy. Yep. Hello. There's a full view of Jimmy's little program here. Yeah. This is the whole show right here. You can see it's 9:05 a.m. There's the time right there. That's the real time, as opposed to the not real time. Yeah, no. That's the real time within about 50 milliseconds. Apple is very picky about their Apple Watches and the fact that they have the correct time. They have signed up for space on a number of satellites that have the correct time because, you know, they use the atomic clock. So all the satellite technology, GPS and all that kind of stuff, they've got to have the right time. So they use that to make sure all their watches are synchronized for the right time, oddly enough. When the Apple Watch first came out, they had all kinds of articles about how their time, their watches, you know, are so accurate with regard to time. Because after all, a watch tells you what time it is. That makes sense. So, I mean, right now it's just taken for granted Apple Watch has the right time, but, you know, like the sweep second hands on the clock, you know, if you have a clock. Now that's a digital clock, but it's just... There you go. You see this right there, the sweep second hand? If you have your phone plugged in and you turn it sideways and turn the phone off, this display pops up right here. And then you can scroll through this. This is Boca Raton. This is local weather. It's 83 degrees outside. The high of 85 and a low of 81. It tells you that 81 at 7 a.m. That's the low temperature. They're not sure of the high temperature, so they don't give you a time, because who knows, maybe at 4:30 p.m. it'll be 86. So that's why they don't have a time underneath the high. They know what the low is, because we've already, you know, sunrise and all that kind of stuff. All right, so whoops. There's the stock market has not opened, but yesterday it closed down 42,003. Nasdaq closed down 19,002, and Apple, you know, closed down, you know, to 200. Just cycle through this. Here's my appointments. And there you go, 82 degrees. Now here it says a high of 88 and a low of 79. Different weather services. But you see I brought this up. You see the sweep second hand? Everybody's watch. If you got an Apple Watch or an iPhone or an iPad or a MacBook Pro and you put up a clock with a sweep second hand, that second hand is sweeping around. All your devices are in perfect synchronization. Everybody's device across the entire planet That sweep second hand is the same going all the way around. The only thing that changes is where this hour indicator is. Because in California, in Chicago, this would say 8, and the Mountain Standard Time would say 7. Pacific Standard Time would say 6. But the sweep second hand, that doesn't change. Yeah, and the number of minutes, past the hour, which is like 10 minutes and 30 seconds. Yeah. Yep, see, 10 minutes and 32 seconds. Everybody's clock is the same around the entire world. Who else can say that? Nobody. You got a bunch of Rolex watches. They all have different... Their second hands are all sweeping all over the place around the planet. Or even in the same place in the same bar. You got, people with Rolex watches, supposedly, they're beautiful watches that don't keep time very well. That's what my Rolex friends tell me. Oh yeah, I love the watch, but it doesn't keep time very well. Oh, and what is it? It's a watch? Yeah. Unfortunately, Apple just has, this very simplistic designs, a beautiful bracelet, and, minimalistic kind of thing. That green bar right there is, I have 206 miles worth of range in my Tesla. There's a little bit of miniature Tesla car there. And there's a little circle there. It shows 206 miles, 72%. My tank is at 72%, or 206 miles. Yeah. Let's bring this back into play. Whoops, we got to switch cameras. I like to be on the right side. There we go. I'm on the right side. Watch this. We're going to go to the Tesla app. See on the top there, it says 206 miles. Now I can touch it. And there you go. It says 72%. I got it on my watch. I got it on my pad. Showed my pads. Yeah. The last time we plugged in, it added 92 miles of energy. We put in 92 miles worth of energy. We put 92 miles worth of range in the tank. I mean, you can call it a battery if you want. Just call it an energy tank. Just pretend we're... let me turn down Epidemic just a little bit. It seems like I'm competing with Epidemic. Is making a lot of noise here. Let's see what the setting is on the... that's why. That's way up there. There we go. See, on the computer, it's supposed to be mid-range, and then my dial here needs to be right there. Now, that's the way it should be. Yeah, I've over the years, I've figured out, they have like 16 different volume levels. I can turn it up here, but I don't want to. I want this right in the middle. And then I have this one right in the middle. Yeah. And I've added 6 decibels of gain, with the dial up here. So that way, that's in the middle, that's in the middle. There's like a detent, a line right here. That's the maximum volume, which is what I put it on in the beginning of these broadcasts. And at the end of the broadcast, when I'm stopped talking, I bring this up to full. But when I'm talking, I bring it down. This is a streaming broadcast. An Epidemic is like ancillary background music, if you will. Yeah. So, I want you to be able to hear me and not have to try to figure out how to discern what I'm saying with the music interfering. So, to set up the illusion, we're at Denny's, we're at Sequella's, we're at your favorite cafe, and you got your AirPods in, or you got your what do you call it, iPad, or whatever kind of device you have, listening quietly with a speaker or headphones or whatever, and you want to listen to Jimmy Yakety Yak here from Boca Raton, Florida. I have all kinds of things I talk about. And if you want me to talk about something, just send me a text message. You can see up on the top there. Well, you can't see. You can text me at 561-416-1100. It'll pop up on my device. I'll keep it private if you want. If you want me to read your text out loud, just tell me that. It'll be private between you and me unless you say otherwise. Then your device number will not be disclosed. It will not. I promise. Yeah. There you go. There's the Tesla app. 206 miles worth of range. She's about 5 miles away. So that's the 3/4 of a tank. Or it's what, 72%. Yeah. With that amount of energy in the tank, we certainly don't have a problem with running out of fuel. Happens to be electric energy, but it's fuel. You put your gasoline in your tank, that's fuel. It just gets combusted in a ICE engine, internal combustion engine. My electricity flows into the motor. There's no combustion. There is no fumes. No, none. No fumes. No sparks. No, nothing like that. All right, I have climate control on the car. If you can see right in the middle. If you have visual. The internal temperature is 93 degrees Fahrenheit. I have cabin protection on. So I'm just going to touch this, and I'm going to spool up here. You see on the very bottom there, cabin overheat protection is on. You can have it for no AC for energy conservation purposes. Like if your battery is running low. Then what will happen is that this is all automated, by the way. The windows will crack about a ½ inch, 3/4 of an inch on all 4 windows, and the internal ventilation will start blowing. So it'll suck ambient air from the outside into the air conditioning system. But there's no air conditioning, because if you turn that off, the air will just get sucked in from the outside and blow out the cracks in the windows. And it will attempt to keep the temperature of the car at whatever temperature you set here, 90 degrees, 95, or 100. I have it set at 95. But I'm going to use the air conditioner to cool the car down. And it's at 95. It's at 90. The internal temperature is 93. See, and the external temperature is 86. You see that right there on the top. Now I'm going to turn on the air conditioner by pushing the button just to the left of the 68 degree doodad. There we go. And now you see the animation of the air flowing from the air conditioners. And you're going to see that internal temperature, right by the 86. Or right by the, there's a little dyslexia, the 68, rather. We can increase that to 70, let's say. Marilyn likes it at 68. We'll leave it there. So the air conditioner is running in the car right now. Now, the interesting thing about an electric car is the whole ICE engine and everything doesn't have to be running to run the air conditioner. All these separate components, like ventilation and air conditioning, they all have electric motors, and they do not require the main motors to be doing anything. The energy is just, oh, you see, internal temperature just dropped to 91. It's starting to, the seating and everything is a little bit warm. This is just an experiment. So now the internal temperature is down to 88. There you go, 88. External temperature is 86. Internal temperature is now 87. So we're bringing the internal cabin temperature is now decreasing because the air conditioner is running. Now it's 85. So, the air conditioners are very effective. Both sides are blowing. 83. It'll run all the way down to 68 degrees. It'll take 4 or 5 minutes to get there. We're not going to do that because we don't need to do that. This is just a demonstration to show that I can turn the air conditioner on in the car that's 5 miles away in Maryland's parking lot at Seacoast Bank. But I'm up here in my studio, and I have just activated her air conditioner from the app that's synced with the car. And I have it on this iPad. I have it on my iPhone. So there you go. Now it's 78 degrees, 77 degrees. All right, so we're going to turn off the air conditioner. All I have to do is press this button that's just to the left of the 68 indication down here on the bottom part. Bingo. Now it's off. You see the animation went off up there. So there's no air circulating. The internal temperature is 76. We dropped it, and now it's 75. Because the air is floating around in there, the cool air, 75, and it's going to stabilize at 75. And there you go. Now it's starting to go back up again because she's parked, in the sun. Now the furniture in the vehicle is white instead of black, so it does not get as hot as if you had black furniture, seat covers and so forth. The last car we had was black on black. Black car, exterior, and black furniture. And in South Florida, it gets a little hot. But you see how convenient this thing is. In other words, so if you drive the car to your favorite lunch spot, and then you go in and you have lunch, and, so you have lunch for an hour then, and so garçon, may I have the bill, please? So when you call for the fellow to bring you the check, turn on your air conditioner. Yes, just go to your app and hit that button and turn it on, so that when you retrieve your car, the internal temperature will be nice and cool instead of jumping into a car that's 95 degrees temperature. So, if you can have the presence of mind and say, boy, it's really hot out there, I can get my air conditioner running, right from the app. And as soon as you start calling for the check, that's the time to turn on the AC. Because that's 5 minutes getting the check, and putting the tip, adding it up, sign the check, fold it over, put it in the pen, and then you get up and you say goodbye to whoever you're having lunch with, and you quietly walk out to the front door, and then both of you, or all three of you, or all four of you, scatter to go against your cars, or valet, whatever the circumstances. And if it's valet, then when the guy brings the car around, the car's going to be cool. If you just parked in the parking lot, then you walk out in the parking lot and get in your car, and you get in a nice, cool car instead of a hot car. There's nothing, to me, there's nothing worse than, well, I mean, this is an exaggeration, but it is kind of like nasty when you open the car door and you got this 145-degree air that blows you in the face. The steering wheel is so freaking hot you can't hardly touch it, But if you have a Tesla, I can turn on the air conditioner while I'm signing up my check. And by the time I get in the car, everything is nice and cool, as if I've been riding the car. And it costs you a couple miles of range. So instead of having, see, I lost a mile of range with this experiment. And now we got 205 miles of range. Still 72%, but we knocked off a mile of range. Big deal. When I get home, I'm going to plug it in. It's a convenience feature. They don't tell you to do that in the Tesla manual. I'm just saying. Because you have an electric car, you have the ability to turn on your air conditioner while you're paying your bill. And by the time you get out to get in your car, it's going to be nice and cool. Now, if you're in the cold climate and it's in December, the reverse is true. You can turn the heater on in the car so that when you hop in the car, the temperature is a nice 72 degrees. So you're not touching a freezing cold steering wheel, or you're going to sit down in a seat that's, minus 10 degrees. So in the winter, you can warm up the car so you get into a nice, warm, toasty car. Or down here in the summer, if the car is, normally about 145, 150 degrees when they're sitting there all locked up in the sun. That's why it kills kids and dogs, because the temperature gets up around 150 degrees. I mean, that's like medium rare. Yeah, you don't want to leave your kid in a 150 degree car, because he will, that little fellow will pass on. He'll be cooked. Yeah. It's a terrible thing to leave a kid locked up in a car. Same thing with pets. Now, the nice thing about a Tesla is, like if I listen to this is interesting. If I pull up to Publix and I'm just going to run in the store and pick up my prescriptions at the pharmacy, I can push the right button on the steering wheel and say dog mode, and then it'll come up in dog mode. You'll see on the display, we have a pet in the car, but the temperature is controlled at 68 degrees. So do not be concerned that the dog is discomforted. And you can lock up the car, you can run in and get your stuff, and that display stays lit up. That big display in the Tesla. So when you look in the window, anybody that looks in the window can see the pet in the car. And instead of beating the windows apart, they can read that screen and it says, no worries. The owner of this car will be right back. The temperature is controlled at 72 degrees or whatever temperature you got there. And they don't have to beat the windows apart to get the animal out, because we have temperaturely controlled. It gets plenty of oxygen because the air circulates from the outside and chills it in hot South Florida. So with all the windows up and the car's locked and everything else, and Fido is in there. Fido is not panting with heat. He's nice, comfortably, probably taking a nap or whatever, or looking around, because the temperature would be at 72 degrees, whatever you have dog mode set to. And then you run in, you're already, the car's locked, Fido is in the car, you run in and get your prescriptions, and then you come back out, and because you're within 15 feet of the car, it automatically opens up for your convenience, and you get in there, and Fido's happy, you get in a car that's nice and chilled, and you can drive off. How about that? I've set the car for dog mode, even if I don't have a pet in there, just so the the car keeps the internal temperature of the car at 72 degrees. So when I'm doing my fast dash into Publix or 7-Eleven or whatever, the car doesn't get hot. And I hop, even if there's no pet in there, I set it on dog mode anyway. Yeah. Now, if I'm going to be away from the car for an hour, I don't do that, because I do the other method. I let the car warm up to 95 degrees because I have my climate control cabin overheat protection, as you can see in the middle there. I touch that button, and if I scroll down to the bottom, I have it set at 95 degrees. So the cabin temperature will not exceed 95 degrees. The air conditioner will automatically come down and chill the car down, 5 or so degrees. So it'll keep going on and off and on and off. Every 10 minutes it'll come back on and keep the temperature down below 95 degrees. Yeah. And it will use up some of your range. A couple miles worth of range will be consumed in that procedure over the 5-6 hours, 8 hours, whatever. But it's very nice because Marilyn will get in the car and she won't be faced with 150 degrees when she gets in. Now, if she's, if it's real hot out and she's, huffy and puffy, hard work and so forth, when she's getting ready to lock up the bank, she can turn on the AC from her app in her phone, just like I did here, same app. I just have it displayed on my iPad. She can turn on the AC while she's finishing up the lockup procedure, so that when she gets out to her car, it'll be 68 degrees in the car instead of 95 degrees. Yeah. It makes a difference, it makes for a much more comfortable. The seats are cool, so you're not sitting on 100 degree seats. Now, the white furniture in there is, that white, seating is very nice. As long as we keep driving Teslas, I would have the white interior. It doesn't get dirty. That's a bunch of baloney. If it does, you can wipe it off with a damp cloth, and if there's any soiling on, on the seating. The color from, let's see, I'm getting some of the rumors. The color from your if you have colored pants on, the color will not wipe off onto the seats. If you wear blue jeans, you will not have blue coloring on the white seats, bleeding off of the blue jeans. No, it doesn't happen. And if there's any, you just wipe it off with a damp cloth. The material is designed not to take colors from your clothing. It's specially engineered to not do that. Tesla thinks of everything. They try to, anyway. And if they forget, there's millions of people driving the car, and they will communicate, with Tesla and say, hey, and bang, 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 you know. And if it's a reasonable suggestion, they'll try to implement it, you know, whenever they implement their cars. You know, when they upgrade their cars. All right, what's going on here? George Wentz, cause of death is revealed. Uh-oh, is there something suspicious about his cause of death? Uh-huh. Do not... Wait a minute. Let's see. How much damage could Donald Trump do to Elon Musk? Or vice versa? You know, these guys, you know, they're going back and forth, and the media, of course, they make a big deal about it. I mean, it could be a big deal, but you got to get smart about this stuff. And Greg Gutfeld, I'm going to use what he said on the 5. You know, he's on the show, the 5, where you have 5, you know, Fox personalities that sit around a semicircle table, you know, with the news cameras focused on each of them, and they banter back and forth about a variety of topics. Well, they were talking about this Elon Musk. There you go. Elon Musk and Trump battling with each other, you know. They're best friends, and now they're, you know, screaming at each other. So Greg Gutfeld had this comment. He said, you know, he says it's very upsetting. It's like watching your parents, you know, witnessing your parents fighting. You know, we know how upsetting that is to see your parents fighting. They need to stop. And that's what they need to stop, because the rest of America is watching it, and they get upset because their parents are fighting. You know, they're two people that are very powerful. And, you know, unfortunately, the Tesla company is let's see, it's 9:37. Let's see if we can, stocks. STOCKS. There we go. I have a stocks app. Let's see how these guys are doing. Tesla. All right. So far today, the day. Here's the week. You can see it's been a not a good week. The stock has gone down 47 points. You know, this week. Because if you do your little dial here, it was at 350, and now it's at 290. It was as low as 280 not too long ago. And it's, you know, it's fought back to wherever it is right now, you know. You can touch on this and slide your finger, as you can see, sliding my finger. This is a delayed broadcast of what the values are, so this is kind of like what the opening values are. It's like 10 or 15 minutes delayed broadcast. I had a trading account, and it was instantaneous. I mean, I would get the stock numbers, you know, within milliseconds of when they traded on the floor or wherever they traded. Here's Apple stock. It's jumped back up to 204 from 200. I think it opened at 200, now it's 204. Let's see, that's the week. This is the day. So there's not much time in the day. Let's just go to the week. You can see the six down below there. I can't reverse pinch it. So, you know, Apple, Cook is going back and forth with Trump on, because iPhones are assembled in China. Foxconn is the assembler. Now they're all designed and everything, in the in Cupertino, California, with all their engineers right there. They designed the whole thing under Tim Cook's tutelage. Right there. There it is. They're having the worldwide WWDC is Worldwide Developer Conference. That starts, I think, next week. Yeah. Yep, like the 11th or 12th, something like that. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, maybe, something like that. 3 or 4 days. Next week. The 12th, I think. This is the 6th, so 6 more days. So it starts on Thursday, yeah, apparently, yeah. Okay. That's when all these engineers get together, and external engineers and internal engineers. People fly in from all over the world or they log in using their Apple device to tune in to the Worldwide Developer Conference. Whoops, sorry. So that happens on the 12th. So the problem with Apple is that millions and billions and billions, millions of iPhones are assembled. Gosh darn it, I keep banging my head into the microphone. Yeah, sorry about that. Keep your head over there and touch your nose to it. And it's hard. And all the supply line, because you got all these parts that come in from all these different directions. Because, there's a lot of stuff that's inside these, you got cameras, you got lenses. I mean, if you start thinking about it, just think of all the buttons. You got this button and that button, you got this button here, you got another button there. You got the display, you got batteries, you got, all the internal stuff. You got, it's a supercomputer. It really is. It's a magical, powerful computing device. And it also answers calls. It's a telephone, right? It's an iPhone. Well, let me tell you, it's a whole lot more than doing telephonic stuff. You can see right there, there's a clock, sweep secondhand. I mean, it's going to the internet and getting updates on what the temperature is outside. I mean, there's so much going on inside that Apple phone right now as it's sitting there. It would make you tired to think about it. Yeah. Oh gosh. So it's a very compact. It's structurally sound. So if you drop it from 3 feet onto something that's, it won't break. If you drop it screen down, and there's a pebble on the surface that you drop it onto, it might fracture the screen. But if you turn it over on the back and you just drop it from 3 feet, it's going to be fine. It likely will not break. I don't suggest you drop it. Don't do that. But if you do, you turn to slide it in your pocket and it ends up on the floor. Pick it back up and check it out. That kind of a drop will generally not ruin the device. So it's designed, to be a little bit on the rigorous side. And there's all kinds of stuff. I mean, the processing power and the gigabyte worth of memory. Gigabyte. That's a you know, that's a lot of bytes when you get 1 gigabyte worth of storage. That's like so much. I have to do that because I have over 100,000. Let's see how we can look at my iPhone. Well, this is here. I'll look at photos on my iPad. Let's see. Look at the top corner. Well, you can't see it. Let's go full screen on this, and you'll be able to see it. You see on the very top left, it says photos. It's covered by the. There you go. See photos. 101,944 photos. 101,000 photos. Now that takes up some memory. And we can go right here to settings and then hit about. And if you look here, there's my terabyte of capacity. You know, phew, that's a terabyte. Oh my God. That's 1 trillion bytes. I've got 499 applications. I try to keep that under 500. I try to erase applications that I don't use, and some I can't part with, even though I may not use them. I've gotten 500, you can see up there in the top, 568 videos, 102,000 photos, 37 songs. Can't imagine what they are and why they're there, but I guess they're there. My carrier is AT&T, version 64 of the software that they provide, Apple. My data number, you can see it right there, because I've got the chipsets in here. So this MacBook, this iPad Pro that I'm diddling with right now, the data line number is 561-213-8930. So when I get information through the internet, it uses that data line number to go get it if I'm using the cell system. So when you have a chipset, when you pay the extra $130 for the iPad and say, I want cellular capability with my iPad, which means that when you're out in the car or you're out in a restaurant or you're out anywhere, you could be out there in the middle of a field, you can be connected to the world because the cellular data system that you buy when you ask for cellular capability, that'll go into the internet and keep you live on the internet. Your emails, your text messages, you can even answer a phone call on your iPad. Because if your iPhone is off, for example, those calls will swing into your iPad if you give that permission to do that. I've answered calls on my iPad because the speaker, is is better with the iPad than with the speaker on an iPhone. They're about the same. I guess you wouldn't know the difference. But you got a bigger screen and everything, and microphones, and the sound coming out is obviously a little more dramatic coming out of an iPad than coming out of the little tiny speakers in an iPhone. So if I can use the speaker system on an iPad, I do. And I have several iPads with data lines. Several of them do not, because I pay AT&T an extra $10 a month for a data line that you don't need. So I would turn those off. But these iPads are all old. the other ones. This is a new one. This one here is an iPad Pro. It's a new one. You can see there it's a 13-inch with an M4 chip. It's super thin. It connects magnetically to this magical keyboard. And I know why they call it a magical keyboard. I mean, this produces, this is like a computer that you can carry out when you have a restaurant appointment or something. You got a complete computer, with this keyboard that connects. So you've got basically a powerful, laptop, if you will, that's totally touchscreen. The touchscreen is really, iPad, the MacBook Pros don't have touchscreen, and they say, oh, we'll never have touchscreen. That's crazy. That is stupid. They don't want to do it because then it competes with their own iPads. Well, so what? If people want to go have a smaller footprint, and so they get a fully equipped iPad. Instead of a MacBook. You want a nice 16-inch screen, a desktop, like I have here with, the systems that control this broadcast is controlled through Ecamm Live, ECAMM Live. That's a software company that controls this simulcast. And it's broadcasting across 3 networks simultaneously right now. We've got 49. You can see the countdown clock right there, or the count up clock. This is the elapsed time, 49 minutes and 10 seconds. Yeah, and counting. And next to it is a clock. Over here is a digital clock. I should move it over just a little bit, because when it gets to 10 o'clock, you want to be able to see the 10. There we go. That's the way you have it. So when it 8 minutes, when it clicks on to 10, you'll be able to see the 1. Anyway, I just have my iPhone here connected. 49 minutes and 46 seconds. Yeah. So the big news of last night was that Trump and Elon Musk are, yelling back and forth. You don't push Trump around, because he's, he's a bit of a bully, so the last thing you want to do is start punching at Trump, because he'll punch back. He ain't going to take any crap from anybody. And Elon Musk served a very important purpose. And he don't like it that he's criticizing, his big tax bill. Now, his big tax bill has all kinds of things in it. The one thing, it's making his, incredibly effective tax bill that he put together 5 years ago, it makes those tax decreases permanent, or else everybody that pays taxes, which is half the country, the other half doesn't pay any federal taxes. That's disgusting, but that's true. The top half of the country, literally 50% to 100%, the top half of the country pays no federal tax. They pay nothing. I don't like that. I think everybody should pay a little piece of something, even if it's a small amount. If it's $25 a month, if you're on the low end of the pay scale, everyone should have a little skin in the game, as they say, for this freedom. We pay for this freedom. Our military, all the people that are in the military, that are willing to die for this country, all the federal roads and highways and the safety, and the beautiful features of this country and the federal parks and, the infrastructure and the energy systems, and the whole infrastructure of this country. It costs money, and everybody should pay something, to keep our infrastructure, running. People shouldn't pay zero. I just don't think that's not fair. You call it progressive, BS. That's too progressive. If it gets up to 52% doesn't pay anything, then they're never going to be able to pay, have any, the tax laws are all going to be run by people that aren't even paying taxes. That's the problem with that. It's about 49.5% of people don't pay any taxes. Well, you got to keep it under 50, or else they'll make it so they never pay any taxes. I think they should pay something, personally, but, I know. All these politicians are, they won't vote for me if that happened. And then they get thrown out of office. And that's why they leave it the way it is. But there are big tax bills with this package. And number one, it keeps the very favorable low tax treatment. It makes that permanent. Now, it does expand the budget by about $2 trillion. And the way Trump is going to get that repaid, in a sense, is that everything's going to expand with this new tax bill. It codifies a lot of the advantages of what's happening right now, so that it'll stay that way, and people will be able to open up businesses in this country, move in here from out of country, and have a 15% tax treatment instead of the 25% tax treatment they have in their home country. They get, there's a lot of tax benefits for for new businesses to open up in the United States and start making things here. Trump wants the United States to start manufacturing things. We have allowed that to be farmed out to countries outside the United States. We want the steel industry here. We want cars to be built here. We don't want them built somewhere else. We want them built here with American workers and yada yada. And that's, that's the Trump theory. He wants America to start making things again. And our we have, this is a crazy number, but it's the media has had plenty of time, to refute this number. And the investigative media, the few pieces that there are, everybody gets investigated now because, you got this Republican president and all the Democrats, they'll investigate every damn thing now. Well, the number that has not been refuted is that there are 90,000 empty factories. There are 90,000 empty factory buildings in the United States right now because the tax laws were such under Biden and Obama that it chased away the manufacturing to out of country. So instead of making cars in America, they're making them in Mexico and then shipping them across the border. Or they're making them in Canada and shipping them down across the border. We want the cars made here. Well, there's a lot of empty factories because when you assemble a car, you not only have to assemble the car, but they're factories that made the light bulbs. They're factories that made the door handles. The GM and Ford didn't make the handles. They assemble the handles in their factory, but someone else has got to make the handles. Well, we want the handles made here. We want the cars assembled here. We want the tires made here. We don't want everything made in China, Japan, and Mexico and somewhere else. all the components of the car we want we want American manufacturing. And it goes right down through the entire supply line of making something that's big, like a car. And the same thing with iPhones. Trump wants the phone manufactured here. He wants the chips manufactured here. He wants the buttons manufactured here. And he wants them assembled here. And if you do it somewhere else, you're going to pay a tariff, which essentially increases the price of the device so that other companies that are making the devices here will have a better shot at selling them because they'll be at a lower price, in theory. I mean, that's the idea of a tariff. It's to force the company that makes the device, it's going to not force, it's going to incentivize. Let's use the right vocabulary. It's going to incentivize the companies that are making the devices elsewhere to make the devices in America so they don't face the de-incentivization by being affected with a tariff. That's essentially what's going on there. Yeah. So, now, there's Tim Cook right there. He's standing there, he got his happy, this is his happy face. Well, he's, contemplating very carefully what's going on, with all this Trump stuff, because, because Trump wants things made here. Apple says, okay, we're going to do that, but you can't click your fingers and okay, you're going to do that, in 10 seconds. It takes, a couple of years to, move everything here and get the factories built here and all the stuff that's in the factories. It's not just the structure. Now, there are 90,000 vacant buildings, so they could, in theory, find a suitable vacant building and then set up operations in that vacant building, make a lease deal with whoever owns the building. They don't necessarily have to build a new building. But, companies like Apple, they build their new buildings. they pretty much do. Tesla took over some factory buildings from, I think, like General Electric and General Motors. They had, General Motors and Toyota had some buildings in Fremont, California, and they took them over, cleaned them up, painted them white on the inside, put skylights in them, brightened them up, modernized the buildings, if you will, and have assembled in there the most amazing automated factory to build cars. It's hard if you do a tour of the Fremont, California factory that makes Tesla cars in Fremont, California. If you can get a tour, do it. It is, you will just be shocked and amazed at how a brand new car can drive out of that building. Every 45 seconds, a new car comes out the back door and automatically drives itself to the parking lot, for staging for, shipping to whoever bought the car. There's no one in the car. You'd think there'd be a bunch of guys, like caddies, jumping in the car and driving in the parking lot over to space number 6923, in lot G or something, No. The parking spot is in the work order, and when that car comes out of the factory, it self-drives itself around the factory facility, stops at the stop signs, stops at the passenger, the pedestrian crosswalks, and goes over to spot number 6,923. The next car comes out 45 seconds later and parks itself over in another lot with a different number, because those cars are all going, to Chicago. And these different lots are all staged to wherever the cars are going. They have a different lot for South Florida deliveries than they have for Jacksonville deliveries, for example. Some cars will be transported with a car transporter. Some will go on a train. There are different ways of... they're actually getting to the point where they're going to have the cars automatically drive to your front door, so that you don't even have to go to the Tesla service center to get your car. It'll be transported to the service center, where they'll clean it up, and make sure the windows are washed, and make sure the interior is properly cleaned and vacuumed, and no dust, and no this and no that, and everything, and a little sign in the window saying, "Welcome to the world of Tesla." They have a sign right on the windshield when you get your car. It's really pretty cute. Mr. and Mrs. Wilson, here's your brand new Tesla Model Y. Nice big sign right in the windshield there. Folded thing right on the window. Amazing. Well, Tesla is now, because of the self-driving capability of the car, Tesla is talking about having it so that the car will drive itself to your driveway and then send you a text message saying, Mr. Wilson, your brand new car is in the driveway, ready for you to activate your keys, whatever. And you use your app to open up the car for the first time and synchronize your phone with your car. I'm not too sure what the procedure is for that. But they're talking about actually having the cars self-drive themselves, empty. No Tesla employee. The cars will self-drive themselves right to your driveway. Probably have a choice. Do you want your car at the driveway, or do you want to pick it up at the service center? Where would you like the car delivered? The self-driving thing is supposed to come in June. What is this? This is June. So sometime in June, the next 2 weeks, the next 14 days, we should have self-driving cars, the robo-taxi, so that'll have a software version, which would then be distributed to, all the cars in the entire fleet. We have one of the cars, we're in the fleet. At the end of our lease, we turn the car back in. You can't buy it. Nope, that's part of their fleet if you lease them. Now, you can buy the car if you want to, and then it's, you're in the fleet, but you own it. And that's fine. You can own the car and use a bank loan to finance it, or write a check, however you want to do that. But if you lease the car, you turn it back to Tesla, and I don't know what they do with the car. They recondition it and prepare it, I guess, for maybe a rental car company, or I don't know what they do with the cars. If they have a big resale division of Tesla where they sell used cars, I don't know. When people turn in their leased cars, I don't know what happens. I know they fix them all up, but I don't know what happens after that. I should do a little Google search on that, find out what does Tesla do with all these lease cars. I lease them, every 3 years, because it's like an iPhone in a sense. The technology increases so dramatically over a 3-year period. I don't want to be locked in to an older version of the car. Even though they update the software, twice a month, roughly, every 2 or 3 weeks you get a software download. So that, that updates the computer and makes things work better, and, all kinds of little improvements here and there, which are quite nice. But the whole structure of the car, the suspension system, the efficiency of the motors, the efficiency of the battery, the fuel tank. The fuel tanks are getting, more efficient and better, and you get more mileage, you get more range. So when you do a fill-up, you can get 400 or 500 miles of range instead of, 250. These lithium batteries are, you learn this when you get in the car, the electric car business. I've written a number of articles about this. So let's say you have a, 300 miles seems to be, they call that long range. To me, that's bupkis, because 300-mile range, you don't really get 300 miles. You can, in exceptional circumstances. You could charge it to 100%, although they tell you don't go over 90. Every day, don't go over 90, because that'll upset the lifespan of the battery. Charge it to 80% instead of 100%. On everyday use, just charge it to 80 and run it down to 20 and fill it back up to 80 and then run it back down to 20. So that means the top 20% and the bottom 20%, they don't want you to use unless you have to. Now, if you're on a trip and you want to charge it to 100% for your trip, they say that's fine, you can do that occasionally, but just not every day. So on everyday use, a 300-mile battery, you don't get the top 20% and you don't get the bottom 20%, so that's 40%. That means 120 miles, let's just round it to 100 miles of that 300-mile battery, you really don't get to use. So a 300-mile battery is really a 200-mile battery, which, that's too many trips to fill up. Now, I happen to have a plug right next to my car where I park. I'm very lucky. No one else in the whole parking garage has that plug. I happen to have it because Dr. Brian, that's his first name, he's a neighbor of mine on the 8th floor in our building. The good doctor went to the building manager and said, I want electricity for my car. So run a cable, I'm sure he was more polite about it. I'm just doing it fast. Please run a conduit from the box that's right on the other side of that wall over there, run it around over here, and bring an outlet right to the back end of this column so I can plug in and charge my car. So the building manager went to corporate, and they said, all right, go ahead and do it. So the electrician came out and said, well, that'll be $2,000 to do that. So he literally wrote a check for $2,000 to have that outlet put right there so he could just plug in, because the good doctor wants to be able to charge his Tesla without having to go somewhere else and fill it up, even though you have a whole bunch of these superchargers all around us. He wanted to be able to plug in overnight and not have to go anywhere. So that way, whenever his fuel gauge went down below 40%, he'd plug in. So on the other side of the column, there was another parking place. And I asked the good doctor, I wrote him a letter, because I didn't know him yet. Now, this is a month before I actually took delivery of my first Tesla. So I looked at that conduit, and I looked at that outlet, and I looked at his Tesla, because we've been in the building here for like 12, 13 years. And he moved in the building, I'm going to say 4 or 5 years ago. And he had this I noticed that the electrician, when they were putting in the outlet, And I figured, well, that's interesting. He's able to plug in. And so, you have a column. There's a parking spot on one side of the column, and there's a parking spot on the other side of the column. So I figured if that parking space on the other side of the column is empty, I asked the good doctor, I said, would you mind if I plugged in and used that plug if you're not using it? He said, that'd be no problem at all. So I wrote him a very nice letter, and he responded very nicely and said, not a problem. You plug in anytime you want, with the understanding that if I need the plug, I'm going to unplug you. And I said, as a matter of fact, I volunteered that. I said, if I'm ever plugged in and you need the plug, just unplug me. Send me a text message so I can go collect my wire, because I don't want someone to walk off with my wire. And which he does, and over the 4 or 5 years that he let me borrow that plug, there was like, maybe 8 times, I don't know, not very often, maybe every 2 months, he'd need the power when I was plugged in. And I said, Dr. Brian, just unplug me. Send me a text and say I had to unplug you. That's all you got to do. And then I'll run down and roll up my wire and put it in the trunk. Because the wire, Tesla charges you $250 for that cable. So you don't want someone to walk off with it, which is not very likely, but because the actual plug is locked into the car unless you're there to unplug it. The car knows that you're there because you have your phone in your pocket. Now, if you walked up to it without your phone in your pocket, you would not be able to unplug the cable from the car. You'd have to cut the cable. So, the chances of all that are limited, because you're really going to cut that cable with 300 volts, and 2,000 amps. There would be an explosion if you cut that like that, because that's a lot of power. You'd get electrocuted, maybe. So people would likely not cut it. So if it's locked into the car, they're not going to get much of that cable. And if they cut it, they run the risk of getting shocked. Yeah. Anyway, so he'd text me every time he'd unplug me, and I would, go down there and roll the cable up and put it in the back of the car, just so I don't have to worry about that, And then when he, is done, then I'd plug in. Or I'd go to a supercharger if it was too inconvenient, and we needed the juice. There's a place right near where Marilyn works, within 1,000 feet. There's a garage with 12 superchargers there, and you just drive right in there and plug it in, and in 15 minutes your car is filled up with fuel. Anyway, so we have a plug. So finish the story. So the good Dr. Brian, he's driving Teslas for 4 or 5 years, and we're sharing his plug that he paid $2,000 to have put in there on the column, and he ends up deciding, I want a Genesis car. That's the name of the car. I want the Genesis SUV. So I sent him a text message. I said, there's a Genesis in your parking place. I'm just informing you that someone is using your parking place. He sends me a text back. He said, oh yeah, that's my new car. I'm no longer electric. I am gasoline car with the Genesis. I love the new car. He traded it in. So I said, really? So you don't need the plug anymore. So I sent him another letter, text message probably, because I know his number. And I said, how about if we swap spots? I've got a beautiful parking place, one level up above you on the 3rd level. You live on the 8th level like I do. And I said, you walk out of the elevator and your car is right in front of you. It's a lot more convenient than the spot you got. But you got the power there. So I'm willing to swap places. You park in my place and you give me your place. So that way I park there all the time and use the outlet that's sitting there. You don't need it anymore. And you get my parking place. And we'll just leave it that way until one of us moves out, I guess, of the building. Then we have to, put it back the way it was. I guess if you move out, someone's gonna be, looking to park in where I'm parking. So I'll probably have to go back to my old space if you move out of the building, which is fine. You can move wherever you want to. And if I move out, I'm just going to take me and my car and go somewhere else. And then you continue to use my parking place until parking spot 368 is, if I move out and someone moves in, because my parking place, everyone's parking place is assigned to, the apartment number. So my apartment number is 812. Everyone knows that. And my parking place is 368. So if I move out and someone else moves in there, building management is going to assign 368 to the new tenant. And then, Dr. Brian, you're going to have to go back to your spot. Because they're going to go to the building manager and say, hey, there's someone in my parking place. And you're going to take your Genesis and you're going to have to go back to your spot on the 2nd level where the outlet is that you don't need anymore. Which is no big deal. You've had that parking place for years. So you're just going to have to go back to it. Because we are not officially, we've decided between the two of us, we're not going to make this an official parking spot swap, with the building manager. We'll just do it ourselves. We've got stickers on the car, and everybody knows that a Tesla's in that spot, and some other car is in my spot. And you get stickers. They hand you stickers. If you buy a new car, they give you a new sticker to put it on the windshield, so they can see that you're a Royal Palm Place tenant. Anyway, so that's the parking place story. So there's one outlet in the entire parking garage, which Dr. Brian paid for. He doesn't have a Tesla anymore, so I'm using it because I became a nice friend of his up on the 8th floor. Nice man. He's an emergency room. He's been head of the emergency rooms of hospitals for like 20 years. And he started this, he and some others, doctor associates. The rest of the story, no, I'm guessing. Produced a concierge service where patients pay an annual fee so they got access to their doctors. Lickety split. So instead of calling into the office and where's doctor, and then maybe you get a call back and maybe you don't, with the concierge service, you need the doctor, you get him on the phone and he answers the phone right away. Or his nurse does or something, It's that's what the concierge service, you're going to be, you have a heart attack and you're laying sideways in your apartment. He'll come to your apartment and accompany you into the ambulance, and he'll make sure your vital signs and everything, whatever medical treatment you have, the doctor that you paid the concierge service to have access to, he's going to be there to take care of you. I mean, that's the advantage of the concierge service. If you have an emergency, his ass is there. Rather than, where you get multiple choice when you show up at the emergency room. You don't know who the hell you're going to get. He may be a good one, and he may be not. All doctors are not the same. Some of them, are not as good as others. When they say they're opening up a practice, they mean it. They literally practice. So, some have more practice than others. I don't know how to you all know. You've had good doctors, and you've had doctors that aren't as good. It's just like anything else. You go to a restaurant, you have really good chefs, and some of the chefs in other restaurants are not so good. Everyone's cooking, and they're all chefs, executive chefs, whatever you want to call them. But some chefs are better than others. Some doctors are better than others. Some lawyers are better than others. We've all had, there are different levels of talent. This is a stupid expression, but I'll use it anyway. Everybody doesn't graduate with A pluses on their certificate. When they give you a diploma, they don't tell you, they don't print it on it, your quality point average. Ooh, he graduated with a 2.1 GPA. Oh, I don't think I want that doctor. I want the doctor with a 4.1, not a 2.1 quality point average. Whatever, anyway. Being a wise guy, but in my science side, I got A's all the time. I don't think I ever got a B in any science class. Now, I had to take, my major was like biochemistry. So when you major in chemistry, you got to have 2 years of German. This is like so stupid. But, back in the early days of chemistry, the manuals and everything are written in German. So they want you to have an understanding of German. So if you reach back into those manuals that were written in 1900, you'll be able to understand, what's going on with some of those German journals. Now, that has never happened. In my chemistry background, my extensive chemistry background, which didn't really become extensive, I've never looked at a German chemistry book and had to figure out what it says. Still had to have that 2 years of German. It was a requirement, at Union College. You had to be fluent in 2 years of German. And I struggled with that. Oh my God. I just thought it was a waste of time. So I never could get my brain to really focus on it. I probably could have learned it. Dr. I can't think of his name right now. The head of the German department, which we knew each other because he knew I needed the 2 years of German because of not many people major in chemistry. It's a topic that most students avoid. But I was very good at it, apparently. And biology and chemistry, I was like a laser. I got A's on everything. A pluses, if there was such a thing. And back in those days, when I went to school, when you took a test, all the students with all the grades, they'd be thumbtacked on the front door of your classroom. So if you got a C plus on the test, you'd be in the middle of the list. And you go down the list and you'd see, Jimmy Wilson C plus. No. I had to be on the top of the list. Now, I didn't care if it was the top or the number 2, or I didn't really, but I wanted to be up there with the A's. This is my major. I want the really good grades. So when I graduate, I got good grades. I don't know what I would do with that, but yeah, jeez. Anyway, so since they would, the secretaries in the department, wherever you took the test, your midterm exams, your final exams, your mid-course exams, they type it out on a piece of paper, your name, your full name, and then the grade over here. The full name and then the grade. And it's listed all the way down in this piece where they thumbtack it on the door. You go, oh, crap. Can you imagine if you get a D- or something? You're on the bottom of the list or failing, Oh, that's Charles. He's got an F on that test. Whew, he's in trouble. And then you look at, if you can figure out who Charles is, you look around, where the hell's Charles? That poor sucker, he's in trouble. No, my name would not be on the bottom of that list. That was the motivation to do good, and I did good, and so I was in my, in math, biology, and chemistry. I tried to be on the top of the list. I was not on the very top of the list in math, but I did okay. I was more A-. But biology and chemistry, I was A+. I was on the top. Maybe I was number 2. But I don't remember being number 2. I was like number 1, top on the list. And they'd look at me and they'd say, God damn. And of course, I didn't look like a bookworm. I just looked like a regular student. So it really surprised everybody. Here's a regular looking guy and he got an A+. So, it was like motivating to some people. And they'd work harder. Anyway. I did the best I could. I should have gone all the way through to a PhD because I was so academic. Oh my God, all the faculty people loved me because I studied and I did well on the exams and everything. And that's the only way they measure your capacity when you're in a academic situation like that. So they, here's the coursework, you study and blah, 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 and you do your theorems and you write your papers and you do your research and you do your microscope work and whatever the heck you're doing. Then they give you a test and, you pass, fail, get in the top, get in the bottom, get in the middle, whatever it is. I wanted to be on the top. I was laser focused on, doing quality work. It was kind of like a pride thing. It was a family thing. I didn't want to disgrace my family with grades that were other than the best you can possibly get. And, my first year in college, I got financial assistance from my parents. But years after that, I did not. I remember telling my mother, I said, I don't need any financial assistance anymore because I've gotten, I'm on this, I'm working, I have a lab course here, I got a lab course there, I'm working in the dining room, serving spaghetti to everybody, whatever. So I'm earning enough money to pay for, my tuition and my room and the board and whatever expenses I need. So you don't need to send me any money anymore. I'm going to do it on my own, if you don't mind. And if I need help, I will call. So thank you very much. Let's keep the letters going back and forth, but you don't need to send me any more checks. You just use that for your own cash flow. And that's the way it was. I had like a 6-year combined degree and 5.5 years, I think it was. I worked my little butt off. And, I didn't want to be a financial drain to the family back in the North Shore. And they had plenty of money. I grew up literally with a silver spoon in my mouth. It was sterling silver. Really. Just imagine this. I'm going to my sophomore year in college, okay? And I'm riding back and forth with whoever could give me a ride. Because some students had cars and most students didn't. Well, I didn't. So I'm home for, I guess the summer. And, I'm a lifeguard in the swimming club, earning my way, so I can end up with some pocket money to take back to school with me in my sophomore year. So I made a couple $1,000s during the summer, which, that was a lot of money, 50 years ago, whatever. And I made like $2,000 or $3,000, teaching scuba diving and teaching this and teaching that. And, it was fun. I totally enjoyed it. The parents liked it. The kids that I taught, they liked it. They all succeeded. I didn't have any failures. With swimming lessons. That kind of thing. Anyway, so I'm getting ready to go back to college for my sophomore year. I got 2 A's, 2 B's, and 2 C's in my freshman year, whatever the hell the courses were. There was a few more courses than that, but I remember it was like evenly split A's, B's, and C's. So I had a B average, which is, not so good. I wasn't very academic my first year, but I was getting used to living by myself and not having your parents telling you to, get to work and stop playing and doing your own laundry and, growing up all by yourself, so to speak. So my first year, I did all right, but, it was a B average. Literally, 3.0, that was it. 3.1. So we're sitting around dinner one night, and I'm getting ready. I'm packing up my stuff. I'm getting ready to get picked up with whoever was going to give me a ride in a couple of days to get back to school. And there was somebody that had a car, and he would stop by and get me, or I'd have to go somewhere, and he'd pick me up with my little luggage bag. And so my mother looks over. We're having dinner one night. And my mother looks over to her husband, my father, and his name was William Henry Wilson. And of course my mother called him Bill, That was the nickname for someone named William. So she looks over to Bill. We're at the dinner table. Give Jimmy the keys to your car. He's, you give him your car, you go get another one. So he looks over and says, "What? Give Jimmy the keys to the car." So he hands me the keys to his brand new EJ Corvette. It's a beautiful white Corvette with a blue panel, 1959, brand new car. It had like 5,000 miles on it. He bought it brand new. He had it for about a year. So he bought it a year ago. This is 1960, okay? My beginning of my sophomore year. Give Jimmy the keys to the car. He's going to be, so he can go back and forth from school. He needs a car. He did well. He got a B average, and he's entitled to a car. And just give him the keys to the car, and then you can go get another one. You can get another, whatever you want. And of course, when they bought cars, they wrote checks. They didn't do car loans or any of that. He made plenty of money. He just wrote he bought a house. He just wrote a check for the house. There's no house loan on the house. Yeah, it was the old Russian. He was a tough guy, but boy, he made money and he wrote checks. He said, if you can't write a check, you shouldn't have it. That was his theory. So much for banking. No, he just write a check. He wrote checks all the time. You go down to the Cadillac dealership, you see the sticker price, you just write the check. He didn't argue about the price. He didn't try to get it down, So when they saw my father come in, they knew, oh boy, here's the sale. So whoever was on the up list, he got, basically is what color do you have? I'll take this one. It's, wrap it up. I'm ready. I'll drive it out of here. you write a check for the car. Whatever the hell the sticker price was, sticking on the door, that's what he paid. He did not try to negotiate down. His theory was, if I beat these guys up on price, they're not going to give me good service. And when I come in here, I want this car serviced properly, and I don't want any debate about that. And if I nickel and dimed them for the price of the car when I bought it, maybe my service isn't going to be so good. That's exactly what his thinking was. Because I had asked him, I said, so what are you doing with that? I can save you a couple $1,000s on these cars. He said, no, I'd rather have the dealership make, the profit on the car that they're entitled to, and then they'll make sure my car gets serviced properly. And they did. When he drove up into the service, they traded him like he owned the place. So I guess it worked in a sense. Jimmy, Bill, give Jimmy the keys to the car. I remember that. I said, holy shit, I'm going to drive to school in a brand new Corvette. Holy mackerel. So when I showed up, my beginning of my sophomore year with that car, I was like, who is that kid? Yeah, that was, phew. That's what I had. Bill, give Jimmy the keys to the car. You can never forget something like that, Bill never forgot it, that's for sure, because Jimmy got his car. What do you mean, give Jimmy the car? Bill, give Jimmy the keys to the car right now. You have the keys to the car? Yeah. He put them down. He wouldn't hand them to me. He put them on the table. Jimmy, pick up the keys. The car's now yours. And Bill, you sign whatever the heck you got to sign so the car goes in his name. So, he'd go out and get the registration out of there, and he'd sign it over to me. He looked at me like, you son of a gun. I said, Dad, I had nothing to do. Thank you very much. I just, thank you very much kind of thing. I figured I didn't want to get in the middle of my mother telling Bill to give me the car. That's what she did. So that's how I got my first car. My father was compelled to give me his car. And then, of course, when I drove off in it, he had to go get another car. So he would go, I don't know what the hell. I think he got another Cadillac. I don't think he got another Corvette. He got another Cadillac, a big land yacht. And back then, the Cadillacs were like 25 feet long. I mean, I called them land yachts. They could get them in the garage, but just barely. In a 24-foot garage. Jeez. Garage door came right down close to the back bumper of that sucker. Yeah, they had two Cadillacs. They had lots of money. They had help living in the house, but they did drive their own cars. Yeah, so Bill went back to Cadillacs, and Jimmy ran off with his Corvette. What a car. That was so much fun driving that sucker. Yep. So that's my story. And you can see on the screen here is the new Tesla Model 2. Now, the question is it going to have this? Now, this is the same door arrangement that that the Robotaxi has. If you remember the Robotaxi, it looked like that. The gold-looking car, when they had, a bunch of Robotaxis in this event that they had in Southern California on one of the sound stages. And they had a whole bunch of Robotaxis driving people all over the place. And let's see if I can get rid of that subscribed. That is annoying me while we're sitting there. So I'm going to hit the cleanup button over there. There we go. So now I'm going to swerve my finger You can see that on screen, right? Yeah. Right there. Get all the red covered. Let go of it. Oh, they almost got rid of it. Let's do it again. It didn't do a very good job. There you go. Now there you go. That's gone. Let's get rid of this little blue part over here. And let's get rid of this white part over here. Let's get rid of this arrow thing over here. Almost got rid of it. There's an X up here. Let's get rid of that. And there's an arrow thing over here. Let's get rid of that. There we go. A little blue still. Yeah, let's get rid of that. So it's not exactly, it's pretty quick right here in front of you. There we go. We'll do that again. And we'll make this a little darker. And make this a little brighter. Yeah. Color, a little more intensity on the color. I want to bring out that gold. Get the temperature. Get that gold, really gold. There we go. There we go. There's a robo-taxi. In gold, and this is in white. Now the question is, will the Model 2 have the same door design as the robo-taxi? Now, it would make sense that they would, because the entire frame and everything with the car is already engineered. So the only thing they got to add to this car that this one doesn't have is the steering wheel, the brake pedal, and the accelerator pedal. Because this robo-taxi, there's no steering wheel, and there's no brake pedal, and there's no accelerator pedal. You just get in there and it drives you to where you want to go. You say, take me to the airport, it'll drive you to the airport, And then when you're done with that, you tell the car, go home and park yourself in the garage. It'll go do that. Yeah. Or you just release the car to the system if you sign up for that. And then Tesla will manage the car rental, so to speak. When someone calls for a car, your car will be in the up system so that other people will get carried around during the day while you're off, on your business trip. Or not. You can keep the car out of the system. You have to give Tesla, if you're in the system, you got to give Tesla 30%. I think that's what it is. You have to give Tesla 30% of the money they make with the car, and then you keep 70%. I think it was something like that. But I was thinking, maybe in a couple of years when this lease is up, that I go ahead and get me a robo-taxi. And then, Marilyn, you go to the parking garage and you tell the car to go take you to the bank and park yourself in that parking place. And it'll do that. It'll just sit there waiting for you for when you're ready to go home. And then you can hail the car and it'll come pick you up right at the front door. And the doors will open when you arrive. And you get in the car and the doors close up. Take me home. And it'll go home. Because you assign, home to a particular address and it'll take you home. Go to work, take me home. There's 2 buttons on there on the top of the navigator. Take me to work, that'd be Marilyn's work. And take me home, and you come back to here, where I'm speaking from. That's the robotaxi. Now here's a white version. White interior, white exterior. And you can see around the door, see the white interior a little better. Now here, yeah, I guess, well, here's, whoops. Where'd that go? Here we go. There we go. Sorry. There we go, it's better that way. So then we come here, and then here's, where you can see the other doors are open. I don't see where the door went. Not too sure how that, this is like an artist, must be, because the rear doors are open, but I can't see, it's like the rear doors aren't even on the car. Here's, you can see with this, there's a door handle back here for rear seats. So this is a robo-taxi model, essentially, with 4 seats. The actual robo-taxi doesn't have seats in the back. When the hatchback opens up, that back portion of the car behind the driver's seat and the front passenger seat is basically the back of a little tiny SUV. Because when you open up the back of the car, there is no back 2 seats. That's like the back of the trunk. The trunk uses the back 2 seat portion of the volume of the back of the car. Now in this version of the car, it's got rear seats and it's got an extra set of doors. So the front 2 doors open up the way you see, and the back door opens up on a hinge like you would expect the back door to open. So they haven't released the car yet, so we don't know. These are different versions of what, look how neat that looks. This is cool. This is the Model 2. I captured these images off a couple of videos I was watching about the Model 2. That's what that little W is up on the upper right corner of the picture. That's the enterprise that produced these images, and I have a feeling they're not actual photos. So here it doesn't seem to. Yeah, there's a rear door. There's the handle right there. Okay. So the car, and this has a steering wheel. I think I can see a steering wheel there, right there, that black steering wheel. So this is, the robotaxi doesn't have a steering wheel and doesn't have pedals. You just get in and tell it where you want to go. It's like an elevator. You walk in the elevator, you push a button, it goes to the 18th floor. You don't have to do anything else. And the same thing with here. You get in the car and tell it where you want to go, and it goes. You don't have to drive it at all. It's got cameras all over the place. It's got 8 cameras. You only got 2 eyes. So it can see more of what's going on around you than you can. And it's connected to a super fast computer designed to drive the car and to observe everything it needs to observe. So it's really quite amazing. We are that close on getting the full self-driving on our Model Y. And it has all the updated computers and cameras because we just got the car in March, a year ago. And all the updated cameras started in January of that year, so we've got all the latest electronics that we need when the completed software package is available. And it just, the app tells you ready for new software, and you download it and install it, and whoosh, all of a sudden it can be self-driving sometime in June. And guess what? This is June. Whew, that's going to be it. Boy, I am sure glad I'm on this planet right now. Thank you, Dr. Brian Bethay. He was my cardiac surgeon that basically saved me. When I say a fate worse than death, well, death is pretty serious business. And I was in a hospital for a week while my cardiologist and the cardiac surgeons, and he interviewed several, until they decided on the course of treatment for my heart attack that I had. And it wasn't a heart attack where you fall over and you grab your chest and go, it wasn't one of those. I was sitting on the couch watching the news. I swear to God, this is like 6 o'clock at night, 6:05, on May 31st, 7 years ago. Whoa. Yeah, June 5th. I should have had a cake. June 5th last year, June 5th yesterday was my anniversary of my cardiac. I survived quadruple bypass surgery. That's how I look at it. I'm a survivor. Because there are many that don't, I'm sorry to say. And my condition was extremely serious, even though I didn't fall to the floor with pain and all this stuff. It was a very serious thing. I mean, my cardiologist he said, "You're my mountain. I've got to get over this mountain." He said, we have a problem here, Mr. Wilson. He said, "Listen, we have a serious problem here. And the surgeon, the head of surgery of this hospital, wants to do a procedure on you that you will not survive." I said, "Ooh." Well, we don't want to do that. What's plan B? And I said it just like that. And he looked over at me and he says, "Well, I'm glad you asked, because this was like on a Friday afternoon." He says, "Tomorrow morning, I have CD-ROMs of all the pictures I took when I did the angioplasty on Tuesday." This is now Friday. And, and I'm on this drip, nitroglycerin and heparin drip. And they're feeding me and making sure all my vital signs are right. And everything was, calmed down. And the heart attack was over, but I had that enzyme in there, so they knew it was actually a heart attack. There was a little tiny bit of damage in the bottom of the heart. The heart comes down to like a point. That whole point got screwed up with my heart attack. The muscle dies, He said, "Boy, it's a really good thing you came in here right away." So anyway, I'm sitting on the couch. Wait a minute. I don't know where to go first. Anyway, let's go back to the couch. So I'm on the couch watching the news at 6:05. And there was nothing that exciting about the news other than the fact that it was, news. And watching Fox News at 6:05. Brett Baer, good newsman. Watching the news, and my watch alarm went off. And it didn't say this, but, there's a display on there. Basically says, "Jimmy, your pulse is 150. What are you doing? You don't seem to be doing anything." I'm sitting on a couch. My pulse is 150. I said, "Holy crap." So I got my blood pressure thing, and I put that on, and I did it. And I said, "No, that can't be right." So I did it again, and my blood pressure was like 200 over 100. I said, "Oh, crap. That's not good." So my blood pressure was like through the roof. My heart is going at 156 beats per minute. I rap on the door. Marilyn's on the outside on the patio talking to her sister. So I rap on the door. I said, "Marilyn, we're going to the hospital. I seem to be having a cardiac event." So I had my little bag, my charger for my phone. I have a little emergency bag hanging on the door here. I got my chargers and crap, so when I get in the hospital, I can keep my iPad and my iPhone charged. God forbid I should lose connectivity, right? I'm in the hospital. So I go to the emergency. I said, "Drive right up to the emergency." She said, "Well, do you want to call the ambulance?" I said, "No, I don't want to wait. I hadn't fallen to the floor. I'm breathing. So take me to the hospital. Hurry up." So, don't go 90 miles an hour, but don't go 20 either. Step on it. You got a patient that is having a cardiac event. Let's not die in the car, all right? So hurry up. The hospital is like 1.5 miles away, so it's right around in the neighborhood. So we drove right up into the emergency thing, and I walked in the front door, and I said, I think you need to put me in a wheelchair. I'm having a heart attack. So they did right away, and immediately I got pushed into the emergency room, and they analyzed my situation, did a blood test, and said, Mr. Wilson, you had a heart attack. And I said, I thought I did. So they put me in a bed number 13, really, and my cardiac surgeon was Dr. Ordonez, Dr. Jose Ordonez. Really, outstanding cardiologist. Boy, he saved my ass big time. Because if the head of cardiology did what he wanted to do, he said, you wouldn't survive this. And he told me, like 6 months ago, this is 7 years later, he tells me 6 months ago, he said, there was a lady patient that we had, and it was the same kind of a problem you have. And the head of cardiology, surgeon, he did the procedure that I didn't like. Patient died. And I'm not going to let him do the same procedure on you, because you will not survive this operation either. So I have a different plan. And instead of having 2 bypasses and 2 of these super dangerous, whatever that procedure was, he says, we're not going to do that, because, there's too many people dying using that procedure. So we're going to do another procedure. So they actually shipped me to the Delray Medical Center, where Dr. Brian Bethay was. And Dr. Brian Bethay was the doctor that did my surgery, and I survived it. Because I'm here talking to you right now. Oof. Thank you, Dr. Brian Bethay. Thank you, Dr. Ordonez. Oh yeah, when I go in his office, I basically kiss his ring. He's like my man. I said, Dr. Ordonez, you saved my ass, so thank you very much. You walk on water, as far as I know. He's a good man. So, we chit-chat and this and that, and he says, you're really in great shape. And I said, yeah, I feel pretty good. I've lost weight. I was 194, and now I'm 172 and stable. And I feel good, and, I get around. I get a little dizzy every once in a while, but basically I get around pretty good. And I have a capacity problem. If I walk down and take the trash and I come back, sometimes I'm like out of breath. And all I'm doing is going down the hall, 50 steps and coming back 50 steps and carrying a 30-pound bag of trash. And sometimes I come back and I'm all winded, like I ran them out around the building 4 times, which I did not. So I have a blood oxygen issue, apparently. So I have a portable oxygen concentrator, and I have a couple of bottles of compressed oxygen. So if I ever, sitting around running out of breath, I can oxygenate myself and stabilize that condition. Anyway, so that's my only problem at 80 years old. Birthday, first day of spring, March 20, turned 80. It's a big number. I never thought about getting to 80 or not getting to 80. Because when you're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, you don't think about 80. Yeah, but when you get to be 75, you start thinking about 80. When you get to 80, all of a sudden you're at 80. What a surprise that was. We had a nice 80th birthday. Our daughter flew us up to Washington, had a nice birthday weekend, up at her place. And was very nice. And here it is, June 6th. And they're getting ready to come out with these new cars in a couple of weeks. And sometime in June, if they miss this June date, oh boy, the investment community is going to hammer Tesla like crazy. And of course, Elon has been up in Washington, so a lot of the Tesla people that thought he walked on water don't like him anymore because he's helping Trump do anything. You know, and you have this Trump and anti-Trump, political, crap going on in this country. It's amazing. The liberals, don't like it when you don't dance to the music they play. And Elon Musk went off the trail and started to support Trump, and it made the liberal people go absolutely bananas. And some of them were burning his cars, and oh my God. And of course the Department of Justice is going to crack down and are prosecuting those people, and they're going to be in jail for like 20 years. Pam Bondi is not someone to mess with. She was the Attorney General of Florida. I'm in Florida. She's a tough one. She is a law and order Department of Justice person. And she was the Attorney General of the state of Florida, and she ruled the state with an iron hand. This soft-spoken, sweet young lady. She's like 59, I think now, but she was 8 years Attorney General, so she was 40-something when she was Attorney General. Now she's 50-something, and next year she's going to be 60-something. Yeah, but underneath that attractive exterior is one tough Attorney General. So the one way to crack down on things like lighting Tesla cars on fire is you lock those suckers up, and you don't let them out the back door so they can go burn more stuff. You lock them up, you keep them in jail, and that sends a signal to everybody else. You do that, you're going to be in jail. And guess what? It stopped. Yeah, it stopped real fast. So you don't want to be damaging cars because they're valuable pieces of equipment and it's personal property, and you just don't go damaging it. And if you do that, you're going to be in a cage. Yep, they jail you and convict you, and you get in prison for a long time. 20 years in prison for throwing a Molotov cocktail, in a dealership or on cars that are private property or government property, it doesn't matter. You're in a world of hurt. And there are no lawyers on the planet that are going to be able to keep you out of jail. So, and they found the people, and they're in jail. And they're going to be convicted, and Pam Bondi says they face up to 20 years in prison for this malicious, event. It's like a hate crime kind of thing. So they're throwing a book at them. Assuming you don't want to mess with her. This last administration, you could do anything and get away with it. This administration, no. Trump is a law and order guy. Here's a Model 2. It's getting ready to be released in a couple of weeks. So they're manufacturing them right now. And they're covering them so we don't know exactly what they look like, because in a couple of weeks they'll have a big display, because there are all kinds of ideas of what this thing's going to look like. And we really don't know. Is it going to look like this? Is it going to look like this? It's will it have this kind of like gull wing kind of front door thing, like the Robotaxi, with steering wheels and pedals? If you buy the Model 2, and if you buy the Robotaxi, no steering wheel and no pedals. Get in and tell it where you want to go. Software is all ready. And apparently the local jurisdictions have approved this self-driving thing for Austin, Texas, and the surrounding counties, I guess, or maybe it's the state of Texas, I don't know, and Southern California. And then in the next month or two, they're going to open it up in the state of Florida and Arizona, I think. I was glad to hear Florida was on the list. So we're going to be able to see this Model 2 and the robotaxis in Florida, in a couple of months. June, July, August, September. They're saying they should have a bunch of these driving around all over so now they'll change the app so that you can call a car. Like you dial up an Uber, you open up the Uber app on your iPhone, and you hail the car. You basically say, I'm here and I want a car. How long does it take to get here? And it shows you, you got 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes for an Uber to show up. Well, in September, I'm just pulling that out of my fanny because Elon said, in a few months we'll open up in Florida. Well, I assume that means South Florida. Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Boca Raton, Palm Beach, the southeastern part where all the people are. And they'll have robotaxi ready for that limited area, And so instead of opening up the Uber app, I open up my Tesla app, and they'll have a tab in there where you can call for a car. And you push a button, and the robotaxi will pick you up and take you to your restaurant destination, a couple miles away. And with the app, you say, take me to Prezzo's. I'm making that up. That is a restaurant. We know the owners. It's a great place. Go to Prezzo's on Military Trail, just north of Boca a little bit. Not quite Delray. And Bert Rappaport owns that restaurant. He's a good restaurateur. He and I both were lifeguards at Jones Beach, South Shore of Long Island, many years ago. Yeah. He was in beach number 9, I was in beach number 3, in the state park of Jones Beach State Park. $60 years ago, when it was a lot easier to get a job at a lifeguard at a beach. Today you got to go through, it's like joining the army. When we joined, we just said, hey, I had my lifeguard patch from the previous job. They just signed you up, I think I had to swim out and swim back. I said, okay, pass. Now it's you got to go through all kinds of drills and stuff. And, like I say, it's like joining the army. But 60 years ago, when you got a life job, at the beach, you didn't have to go through much. And if you already I had my water safety permits. I actually had the permit where you teach people to be lifeguards. So I had all that certification. So, I was like in. That was it. As long as I could walk around. They knew I had everything else because I was a water safety instructor. So that cut through a lot of stuff. Yeah, I was a person that could teach people to be lifeguards. I was a lifeguard. I had that certification, and I ended up having I got the instructor at Union College. I got the water safety instructor license, certification, whatever they call it. Which, you had to do all kinds of stuff. It was a pretty rigorous course, I must say. But when I got back home, that was like, lights out important. To have that certification, you get a lifeguard job at a state park. It's pretty easy to do that back in the day. All right. As you can see over here with the elapsed time, it's up to 2 hours and 12 minutes and 19 seconds. And my coffee is cold, or 110 degrees or whatever, instead of 140 degrees. Let's see what it is exactly, just for the heck of it. I have my handy digital thermometer. There it is, 99.9 degrees. You can see it right there. Yeah, not hot enough. So I think I'm going to call this a day. It's 11:15. I'm going to boil up some noodles. I'm out of pasta. I have my outstanding pasta sauce. I'm going to put one in the freezer. I got one container in here. And I'm going to have the nicest spaghetti for lunch today. Yes, with my own sauce. It is magical. Tomato sauce with the best tomatoes money can buy from Alessi. Buy the Alessi tomatoes. All right, so you all have a great day. And I'm supposed to go back to this image right here, and I'm supposed to go full screen on this. This is what YouTube advises. And then I crank up the music and then let it run for about 30. You want a header and a tail on your streaming. They record all this stuff, and it's locked in. What happened? I just lost my music. This was slide back in. Oh God. There we go. That was strange. Anyway, so we're full screen on that, and I'm going to shut down this broadcast at 2 hours and 14 minutes in. It's 11:17, which you've seen on the clock. And you'll have a great day. Prepare for lunch and have a nice weekend. I'll probably be talking again tomorrow. It could be early. I might have a 7 a.m. show tomorrow morning. And because I get up early every day. It's 9 o'clock or 9:05 on weekdays. But Saturday and Sunday, if I do the show, it depends on, Maryland and where we're going or not going or whatever. So it's likely that I'll be doing a broadcast tomorrow at about 7 a.m. It could be even 6 a.m., sometimes I get up at 5 and I'm ready to broadcast at 6. And then I figure out what the hell I'm going to talk about for an hour or so. Anyway, so I'll see you tomorrow. In the meantime, you have if you don't get a chance to listen to me, have a great weekend. And hopefully our military and our government everything is stable and we don't have any outbreaks from anything. I mean, the world you got a crazy world out there. And we're like running a balancing act on, the Russians and the Chinese and the Ukrainians and the, Iranians and, they're getting ready to almost build an atomic weapon, and Israel is nervous about it, so they're getting ready to bomb shit out of Iran. And the only way they're going to agree to anything with Iran is if Iran agrees to self-destroy everything. It's not going to be one of these, I promise not to build it anymore, because there's no way to monitor that, and they cheat. So what good? I mean, they've had that permission for like the last 6 years, and they're like the bomb is going to be ready like in a couple of weeks. We got to stop it now. So and Israel's getting very nervous, because Iran is going to completely nuke, Israel. That's the plan. They don't want Israel to be alive. It's as simple as that. So, it's like death to Israel. I mean, that's what they chant. And we're next after them. So this is not a good situation. So Trump has got his hands full, and you got the military and our intelligence services, and everybody is focused on this problem. And maybe we'll talk a little bit about this tomorrow morning. But right now, I'm going to go have lunch. Mr. President, keep us safe. Thank you very much. You all have a great weekend. But for those that want to tune in, I'll see you tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.